Greetings, everyone. This is Rock and Roll Spot Connection with the Comic Book Roundup. We've already covered this week's X-Men books, as well as this week's the one Avengers-related title I picked up this week. Now we're covering this week's King in Black tie-ins, as well as this week's miscellaneous Marvel books. Starting things off with King in Black Namor, number 3. So, where we left off. When he was much younger, Namor, Attuma, and Namor's friend Dorma, as well as her mystically enlarged pet fish Ambrose, were accompanying a group of Atlantean heroes known as the Swift Tide in retrieving the Unforgotten Stone. They ended up in Murmansk, where a group of Russians, as well as Baron Wolfgang von Strucker, we're also working on it, and the Swift Tide was caught up in a wave of eldritch energy from the stone, which warped them. So the issue begins. Turns out that the energy that warped the Swift Tide was also Dorma, Namor, and Attuma were all exposed to it as well. So, additional Atlantean soldiers go after the take on the Swift Tide, who, had no problem wiping out the Atlantean soldiers viciously. Namor explains from the present that the one known as the Mountain may have been the worst, as she had merged the seafloor itself and drew fires from deep below, all the way from the molten ocean to the center of the earth. Namor attacks one of the members of the Swift Tide, but now the Black Tide, but it doesn't do much good, and they are promptly flung away, basically told that they will share. They will they will now tell a tale. The Black Tide leaves, and later our three heroes awake, find themselves surrounded by bodies. Attuma tries to go in, but Namor stops them. Hey, you saw what happened to the Tide when they went in there. Ambrose, however, goes in and is promptly devoured by the energies of the stone. So they figured, okay, they got to get back to civilization. A chariot is found. Attuma decides to call some whales. However, Namor says that he's faster than any whale and he won't tire. Also, he is much stronger than a normal Atlantean. So they move through it, Intersea Domain. They come upon a town, a settlement they had passed through on the way there, to where their current position. Apparently the Tide had been there already. In the present, Namor surveys the area, and it's learned in the region they have a saying: stay clear of imperial concerns, they come with blood and teeth. Some of Namor's defenders of the deep are busy trying to find this Black Tide now, but they're not having much luck. Back in the past, Attuma's people are celebrating and preparing to join with Atlantis when the Black Tide attacks and promptly slaughters the entire group. Attuma's father summons forth a sea dragon, and when Namor, Attuma, and Dorma arrive at Atuma's home, they find the site of a slaughter. And Atuma picks up what is definitely a very rather familiar looking skull. Apparently that of the sea dragon. Also, Atuma blamed Atlantis for what has happened. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next King in Black tie-in. Daredevil number 26. So we haven't been reading Daredevil. The quick version is that of what's been going on. Daredevil is imprisoned as the only mass vigilante authorized to operate in New York is Spider-Man. But yeah, Daredevil has apparently been arrested. From the sounds of the issue, he's been arrested on murder charges. However, unlike the last time he was arrested, that I recall, he's imprisoned with his mask. His identity has not been revealed. Meanwhile, in Hell's Kitchen, Elektra has made her own Daredevil costume, has taken on the mantle of Daredevil at the behest of Matt Murdock. The issue begins in Rikers, in prison. Daredevil's people watching when one of the other inmates comes up and tells him that he's creeping people out by doing so. But they have a discussion, and he basically says, explains, Daredevil says that his sentence is 2 years, and he plans to serve all of it. And the inmate in question, Marcus, basically says, "Please, you think the white guy's going to be serving his entire sentence?" But he's brought before the warden, who meant to meet him on his arrival weeks ago, but he's been preoccupied. Apparently the warden's been preoccupied. Apparently, way, way back in the day, Daredevil busted the warden's son, the villain Crime Wave. The warden states that he harbors no ill will towards Daredevil. And his son was hurting people and needed to be brought to justice. Just as Daredevil needed to be. To which Daredevil realized Marcus is wrong, that Daredevil's not getting out of prison early unless it's in a body bag. In Hell's Kitchen, Elektra stops a gun runner, but does it Matt's way, leaving the gun runner alive. When she sees one of Null's symbiote dragons. Elsewhere, Mayor Fisk is at an event with his security, with his chief of security, Mary Walker, Typhoid Mary. When Wesley informs him that the Class E situation they were warned about is happening. As they leave the museum, more of basically the Null symbiote drones attack, and while Fisk and Wesley manage to get away, Mary gets taken over by Mary trying to burn the creatures and having no luck, gets taken over by them. But back in prison, Daredevil hears what's going on and realizes that there's something trying to get into the prison. Gets the guard's attention, and yeah. At a bar, a woman has shown up to retrieve her 16-year-old daughter Alice, who's being chatted up by one of the others at the bar, getting into an argument. They leave the bar and, of course, go basically right into the middle of crazy. The mom gets taking over all the symbiotes, and Elektra saves the girl and does what she can to keep the symbiote, the possessed mother away from the girl, hitting the car, back in prison. Daredevil gets free. Manages to get a hold of Nightstick, and while Elektra's facing off against the symbiote-possessed mom, she now has a new symbiote-possessed foe to deal with, Typhoid Mary. Meanwhile, while Daredevil's in prison fighting off the symbiotes, well, yeah, he can only use so much. And one of them grabs him. We have a brief conversation between Null and Matt Murdock before Matt comes out. Rather stunning new look. Yes, he's now one with Null. He has been nullified. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book of the week, Deadpool, number 10. Also a King in Black tie-in. Where we left off, Deadpool and Elsa Bloodstone had just escaped the Bone Beast dimension and left quite a mess in their wake there. On Earth, on the island formerly known as Staten, yeah. Venom stuff's going down. Deadpool's putting together a team. And it's pretty much the team he put together earlier. Got Shiny, there's Hurl is on standby. Mr. Frosty, who seems to, inadvertently at least, only speaking cold puns. The flower-headed guy, the fish head, the Dutch oven, who get flower-headed guy, Dutch oven, no. Sauron, yes, from the X-Men villain, Sauron. Explaining that if the world is all black goo, he can't turn people to dinosaurs anymore. Of course, Elsa, Jeff, Wade. But yeah, the team consists of Mr. Frosty, Sauron, Chip Morita, Fishhead, Fishman maybe? Zurgo, Jeff, Shiny, Elsa, Nightwolf, Budbun the Destroyer, Kolab the Pile, and Quonian. And of course, Deadpool. On their way out, they're stopped by the leader of the Dio Monstri, who were basically saying, "Hey, what's going on? It's for our prophecy. So yeah, go ahead, go out there, get yourself killed, so we can prove that yeah, the prophecy's true." And Deadpool was like, "Wait, why are you telling me to go out there and get killed to prove your prophecy true? Why are you warning me about this?" And well, there kind of says that they kind of want us to acknowledge that they were right about the prophecy, and that they're legit. But yeah, Deadpool basically no, sorry, you're not right. This this event is all about Venom related stuff, not monster related stuff. So yeah, nope, sorry. Read a damn comic for once. God. Anyway, they get out there and face off with one of the symbiote dragons, and it promptly eats Mr. Frosty. And some of the symbiote goop gets on, takes over Jeff, and starts to also take over Deadpool. So he does what he takes care of things in the good old-fashioned Evil Dead manner. Since it's getting started on his hand, he cuts off his hand. Not with a chainsaw, though. However, Jelby, the monster who turned out to also be a mutant, has shown up, and he's also wrapped Jeff in some of his own personal gel, and yeah, I know how weird that sounds. And Deadpool gets an idea. Basically, everyone piles into Jelby. Jelby takes out the dragon. Deadpool's taking all the credit, even though Elsa's kind of saying, hey, you realize we're all in here too with you, right? But they work together, they take down the dragon. At least they knock into a sinkhole. Then Wade and Elsa have a bit of a kiss before Deadpool jumps into the creature's mouth to try and kill it. Very meta. There's a very meta page where he's kind of holding the dragon's mouth open, and apparently this before this was going to be a tie-in. This scene was already planned. Then Jelby goes down, pulls the dragon into himself. Jeff gets fixed thanks to a speaker blasting Wu-Tang. Nightwolf informs Deadpool there's a rather large line of masks in the throne room. It's complaints about property damage, and the leader of the Monster is wanting to let him know that they made some mistake in the calculations and they got the Monster Armageddon wrong, that Monster will be coming for Deadpool in 2022. And sadly, final issue of the series. That is where the issue, and sadly the series, ends. And I'm figuring that Deadpool realizing, oh crap, this most recent title mine just ended, ended up doing something stupid, get himself arrested, which brings us to Savage Avengers number 17. So where we left off, Conan had helped in an assault against the forces of Kulan Gath, and stated he was going to go and do some drinking. And he headed to the bar with no name. Apparently just before all hell broke loose, courtesy of Null. Conan gets brought in by a handful of cops, tossed into a drunk tank. Deadpool's there. Like I said, presumably he got pissed off about his book being canceled and went and did something stupid. Gets his arm broken. Him and Conan meet and talk, and well, Deadpool realizes that he didn't take the guard's cell keys, but rather his personal keys. And upon seeing an example of Deadpool's healing abilities, Conan remarks that he's the only other person he like that was his old friend Logan. Turns out that, Conan is still very interested in getting his own pair of sneak blades. Though Wade, Deadpool, knowing how Wolverine got them, you want to be a weapon access subject? But Conan has a plan for escaping, which takes advantage of Deadpool's abilities. That plan? Push Deadpool through the cell doors, even if it does tear him to pieces. So now he's on the other side of the door. Guard comes in, slips in the puddle of Deadpool, almost quotes Judge Dredd before getting knocked out by Wade, who steals the keys. They get out. One of the other inmates in the cell, a thief by the name of the Night Flyer, asks to also be let out, and so 7 minutes and 9 guards later, Deadpool, Conan, and Night Flyer are getting some stuff out of the lockup, including Deadpool apparently left a set of swords there 2 arrests ago or so. Conan picks up some blades. Nightflyer picks up his rig, and they also snag a couple of horses and make their way back into New York proper. And promptly face off against the creatures, the symbiote creatures. One of them is, in fact, the symbiote that Conan encountered at the beginning of Savage Avengers, the one that Kulan Goth had. And he's basically kind of does a, hey, but he's basically given the option of joy or die. Upon seeing Conan still, fighting with the symbiote goop while Deadpool shooting it, Nightflyer kind of just said, this is out of my pay range, and fucks off. And that is where the issue ends. Which brings us to our next book, Werewolf by Night, number 4. Where we left off in Werewolf by Night, number 3, our young werewolf, as well as most of his fellow tribe members, had been captured by Life Pharmaceuticals. U.S. Marshals Red Wolf and JJ were planning to go after him. But yeah, the issue begins with, like I said, I forgot, Jake basically being held captive by in a tube by Life Pharmaceuticals. JJ and Red Wolf have gotten some help from a young man by the name from the hacker that they arrested in the beginning of the series, Pathmind, who is basically hacking into the Life Pharmaceuticals complex so they can get through. Maps, all that. The people that the mercenaries that they hired to capture the non-power mercenaries that Life Pharmaceuticals hired are of course paid, and they're going to be also allowed to test their Life Pharmaceuticals' new evolution formula. JJ and Red Wolf discover what is best described as a brain frame, and Red Wolf puts in a skeleton key on it to get information for Pathmind. And what was her name? Dr. Mikowski realizes someone's trying to get in, someone's inside the system, and basically has her assistant Hadley call forth Lady Hedge and her team, while Jake is is changing in his in the stasis tube that he's in. The mercenaries are promptly told by Dr. Mikowski to stand by and protect her from anyone or anything that comes through the doors. Meanwhile, Lady Hedge and her team show up and go after Red Wolf and JJ. However, Pathmind is able to basically undo their programming. Jake gets loose, and Mikowski realizes she's going to have to basically finish her research elsewhere, and begins to work on an escape, telling the mercenaries that they can partake from the evolution stuff if they want, or but she's cut off. Her speech is cut off by Jake escaping, and then Lady Hedge and her team arrive for Dr. Mikowski. One of the Mercs does take the evolution serum, becoming a cyber werewolf, while Mikowski. Oh, and he kills the rest of the Mercs. While Mikowski takes on Lady Hedge and her people. Jake's able to calm down a bit, but then the Cyberwolf goes after him, so yeah, Jake and Cyberwolf go head to head. In the end, though, Jake manages to win. He fights Dr. Mikowski, who has taken down Lady Hedge and her team. Taken down but not killed, but at least in the case of Lady Hedge, it's close. It's currently close. During the fight between Mikowski and Jake, she stabs him in the shoulder, but he basically punches through her, and her face just kind of opens, and she has a miniature brain frame within, which pops out and goes to a helicopter, but he can't get to it. Hedge's team definitely considers themselves and Jake consider them, definitely allies anymore. And they've got to do something for Lady Hedge because she's close to death. Jake turns back. JJ and Red Wolf get everyone taken care of. Cyberwolf is being taken away. And the next morning, Red Wolf, JJ, a few others are having breakfast together. And Red Wolf and JJ are going to be working with Jake on controlling his powers. In Mexico, however, the mysterious chopper from Life Pharmaceuticals has touched down, and Dr. Mikowski's brain frame basically gets into a new cyborg body. That is where the issue and the miniseries ends. Which brings us to our final Marvel book of the week. Marvel, number 4. This cover is very weird to me because it's Alex Ross channeling Rob Liefeld, and it just feels weird. Anyway, so where we left off, Nightmare had imprisoned Doctor Strange and has since revealed he has also done the same to many of Earth's heroes and to many of the cosmic beings as well. So once again, we've got our we got 3 stories. First off is Sons of Deviant World, starring the Old West Ghost Rider, or featuring him. Begins in 1879. Ghost Rider comes upon some robbers who turn out to be deviants. Takes them down. However, explain that later on, the deviants would come from deep in the earth and take over. And so, 150 years later, that would be 2029, and in New Deviant York, humans are now enslaved by the deviants. And we see some human gladiators: Thundra, the captain, Destroyer 3 and his Destroyer 3, Killraven 2. But the deviants are watching from New Lemuria Coliseum. And, one of them has arrived a bit late. Apparently, he was, as Crow explains to the late arrival, explains to the monarch and his wife, he was talking with the Lord Priest all afternoon about which robe is more appropriate to conduct torture in. Meanwhile, everyone's watching the gladiators, including some additional ones: Ghostfly, Beast, Cyborg Thing. Beast is basically revealed to be most definitely Wolverine. Though he does seem to be wearing, or a combination of Wolverine and Beast. Meanwhile, Crow explains that he sent one of his slaves, a human with amazing abilities, Spider-Man, on a Goblin glider. He's capable of infiltrating anywhere, and he's infiltrated the Lord Priest's palace to enter undetected. Next up, we got Beta Ray Bill, though. However, gladiatorial games are suddenly stopped when the sky is seemingly aflame, and something comes out of the sky. It is the arrival of the Silver Surfer, Herald of Galactus. Planning to decide if he should condemn the planet or save it. And that is where the story ends. Next up, we've got Where Monsters Smell from the Chronicles of Dr. Droom. It's a very tongue-in-cheek homage to the old 50s monster comics that Marvel put out. It's actually very amusing, as Dr. Droom narrates. Though eventually it turns out that they're not. We see the monsters rampaging throughout the city, but it turns out they're not actually rampaging. They're just coming by the office. They all got pink slips. And then Dr. Droom is handed the pink slip by an off-panel but very stretchy arm. And that is where the issue ends. Or the story ends, which brings us to our next story, the next and final story. I Am a Revolt in Development. It's the origin of the Thing, talking about his Ben Grimm's childhood, though it tells it in a manner as though he was always covered in orange rock. It makes it clear that he wasn't, but he also said he wasn't that much of a looker, but he wasn't bad looking either. And in college, he met Reed Richards. After college, became a pilot in the Army, which is likely why he probably continued to be. Which is likely why Reed got a hold of him later on when he was trying to impress Sue. With rocket ships, cosmic rays, Fantastic Four, yeah. But now people look up to him, and he supposes there are worse things that could happen to a guy. Back in the bookend story, in the framing story, though, Nightmare has also seemingly defeated the various cosmic entities. And he will use the power that turned him into a conqueror to transform himself into a deity now. And Doctor Strange has figured out the power he holds, but he now wonders if he has the strength to take it back. And that is where the issue ends. That's it for now. As always, feel free to like, share, and subscribe. Links to my Facebook, Twitter, Patreon, and PayPal can be found in the description box down below. This is Rock and Roll Spock signing off, saying live long and rock hard.